Admiral Vexstar stood before the massive viewing screen of his flagship, watching the small blue planet turn slowly in the darkness of space. His scaled hands gripped the command rail as he studied the primitive world below 3 suns had passed. Since the Krellian hegemony's long-range scouts first detected this system, and now the full might of the Third Fleet surrounded the planet like hungry predators. The reports from his intelligence officers painted a picture of a weak civilization barely capable of space travel. Their weapons were crude projectile systems that could not penetrate Krellian shields. Their ships moved slowly on chemical rockets, while Krellian vessels bent space itself to travel between stars. The humans had no energy weapons, no quantum shields, no understanding of the fundamental forces that powered galactic civilization. Admiral, the planetary scans are complete, reported Captain Ikevmore, his voice carrying the confidence of a warrior who had conquered 14 worlds. The humans have approximately 8 billion individuals scattered across 7 continental masses. They possess nuclear weapons but lack the delivery systems to threaten our fleet. Vexstar nodded slowly, his yellow eyes reflecting the cold light of distant stars. The Krellian hegemony had crushed civilizations far more advanced than these humans. The Tellarian Empire had lasted 6 months against Krellian might. The Borean Collective had surrendered. After only 3 weeks of bombardment, these primitive humans would fall within days. Begin the standard intimidation protocol. Vexstar commanded, destroy their orbital stations and military installations. Show them the futility of resistance. The first Krellian attack came without warning. Massive energy beams lanced down from orbit, vaporizing military bases and space installations across Earth-Luna Station. Humanity's primary orbital defense platform found itself facing 12 Krellian destroyers, each one capable of destroying entire cities. Commander Jake Morrison watched the enemy ships approach through the station's observation deck. His weathered face showed no fear, only the grim determination of a man who had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. Morrison had fought in the water wars of 2157 and the Martian Rebellion of 2162. He understood that sometimes the only choice was to fight impossible odds. Sir, enemy vessels are powering weapons, reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from the tactical station. Our shields cannot withstand their firepower. Morrison studied the tactical display, his mind racing through possibilities. The Krellian ships moved in perfect formation, their weapon systems charging in synchronized patterns. Their attack would be precise, overwhelming, and final. Everything about their approach suggested a military doctrine based on superior technology and coordinated strikes. All stations, prepare for guerrilla protocol. Morrison ordered, forget everything the Academy taught you about space combat. We are not going to fight these aliens the way they expect. The Krellian bombardment began with devastating efficiency. Energy beams carved through Luna Station's outer hull, venting atmosphere and debris into space. But instead of concentrating their defenses at the main docking bays, Morrison had scattered his forces throughout the station's maintenance tunnels and storage areas. Amy Rodriguez crouched in a cargo bay, clutching a mining laser that had been hastily modified for combat. The weapon was crude compared to military hardware, but it could still cut through metal. The Krellian boarding parties that entered the station expected to face organized resistance in the command centers. Instead, they found empty corridors and silent rooms. The first Krellian soldiers died to improvised explosives hidden in ventilation shafts. The second wave fell to humans who attacked from unexpected angles and disappeared into the station's maze of service tunnels. The aliens' advanced armor meant nothing when humans used industrial equipment. As weapons, Morrison coordinated the defense from a secondary command post deep in the station's core. As reports came in from across the facility, he began to understand something that would change the course of the war. The Krellian battle computers were programmed for logical warfare. They expected enemies to defend strategic positions and follow predictable patterns. Rodriguez, take your team and hit their shuttle bay. Morrison ordered, use the waste processing system to move between sections. They will not expect an attack from the sewage lines. The fighting continued for 18 hours. Krellian forces controlled the main levels of Luna Station, but humans struck from below, above, And within the walls themselves, every maintenance hatch became a potential ambush point. Every storage room held hidden defenders. The aliens' superior technology meant nothing when they could not predict where the next attack would come from. As the battle raged, Morrison realized that the Krellian weakness was their strength. Their military doctrine relied on overwhelming technological superiority and coordinated tactics. They had conquered 14 civilizations using the same methods, and their success had made them predictable. All units knew orders. Morrison broadcast through the station's emergency communication system. We are going to give them exactly what they do not expect. We are going to be unpredictable. The final phase of the battle began when Amy Rodriguez led a team of engineers to the station's reactor core. Instead of defending the reactor, they began overloading it. Morrison had realized that the Krellians wanted to capture Luna Station intact to use as a base for their Earth invasion. The Krellian commander received the human surrender message with satisfaction. The primitive aliens had fought longer than expected, but the outcome was inevitable. His soldiers would secure the station's command center and begin the bombardment of Earth. Rodriguez pressed the detonation control as the last Krellian soldiers entered the reactor chamber. The explosion that followed did not destroy Luna Station, but it crippled the Krellian fleet's flagship and sent a message that would echo across the galaxy. The humans would not surrender. They would not follow the rules of civilized warfare. They would fight with whatever weapons they could find, attack from impossible angles, and destroy themselves rather than submit to conquest. Admiral Vextar watched his flagship's hull breach warning lights flash red as emergency bulkheads sealed damaged sections. The primitive humans had done something no enemy had ever accomplished. They had surprised the Krellian hegemony. The war that followed would last 3 years and consume the resources of an empire that had endured for millennia. The Krellian hegemony would learn that some victories cost more than defeat, and some enemies refuse to lose even when losing is the only logical choice. The age of easy conquest had ended, though the galaxy did not yet know it. Fleet Admiral Jekyllon studied the holographic display showing the scattered remains of the Krellian hegemony with cold satisfaction. 50 years had passed since the humans destroyed the galaxy's first great empire, and the Zephyrian coalition had risen from the chaos. The coalition was different from the hegemony. They had learned from Krellian mistakes. The humans are predictable now, Jekyllon announced to his assembled commanders. We have studied their tactics for 5 decades. We know they use guerrilla warfare, improvised weapons, and psychological attacks. Our new doctrine accounts for every human strategy. Captain Velthara nodded from her position at the tactical station. The coalition's military academies had dissected every human battle from the war against the hegemony. Their officers trained specifically to counter human unpredictability. Their ships carried equipment designed to detect ambush and prevent improvised attacks. Admiral, the invasion fleet is ready, reported Commander Kexton. All vessels are equipped with anti-guerrilla systems and adaptive combat protocols. We will not repeat the hegemony's errors. The coalition fleet that approached the Centauri system was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of the massive dreadnoughts favored by the hegemony, coalition ships were smaller and more flexible. Their hulls bristled with sensors designed to detect hidden enemies. Their weapons could adapt to unexpected threats in real time. Colonel Lisa Chang watched the enemy fleet approach from the command center of New Geneva Station. The orbital platform defended the outer colonies of the Centauri system, home to 12 million humans who had been born in the decades since the hegemony war. Chang had studied the coalition's rise to power and understood they faced a different kind of enemy. Status report. Chang ordered as her staff prepared for battle. Coalition fleet consists of 200 vessels, reported Major Kevin Barnes. They are maintaining loose formation and scanning for hidden defenses. Their approach pattern suggests they expect guerrilla tactics. Chang nodded grimly. The coalition had done their homework. They knew humans would not fight a conventional battle. They expected ambush, improvised weapons, and desperate tactics. The question was whether humanity had learned anything new in 50 years of peace. Activate Protocol 7. Chang commanded. Time to show them what we have been working on. The coalition's first surprise came when the human defense fleet emerged from hyperspace behind them. Admiral Jekyllon had expected humans to hide among asteroids and space debris instead. 50 human warships appeared in perfect formation, their weapons already charged and targeting systems locked. Impossible, Jekyllon muttered. Human ships cannot achieve hyperspace precision. They lack the technology for coordinated jumps. The human fleet opened fire with weapons that defied Coalition understanding energy beams bent around Coalition shields and struck hull plating directly. Missiles phased through defensive barriers as if they did not exist. Human technology had evolved beyond Coalition comprehension. Dr. Carl Thompson monitored the battle from his laboratory aboard the flagship New York. He had spent 20 years developing quantum tunnel weapons that could bypass any known shield system. The Coalition's adaptive defenses were useless against weapons that attacked from other dimensions. Target their command ship. Thompson ordered his weapons teams show them what human innovation looks like. The Coalition's second surprise came when their adaptive combat systems began failing. Human weapons changed their fundamental properties during flight. Energy beams became particle streams, became gravity waves, became something Coalition computers could not classify. The aliens' ability to adapt became worthless when they could not understand what they were adapting to. Engineer Nina Wells launched the first wave of self-replicating combat drones from the manufacturing bay of her vessel. The small robots were built from common materials but programmed with devastating effectiveness. They could reproduce themselves using enemy ship components and adapt their tactics based on battlefield conditions. Admiral, our shields are failing, reported Captain Valthara. The human weapons are operating on principles we do not understand. Jekyllon watched his perfectly planned invasion crumble as human technology proved itself superior to Coalition science. The adaptive systems that were supposed to counter human unpredictability could not adapt to weapons that should not exist. The third surprise came when Coalition forces attempted to retreat. Human ships pursued them not with superior speed but with tactical brilliance that made escape impossible. Every Coalition maneuver was anticipated and countered. Human commanders seemed to think several moves ahead of their alien opponents. Commander Pete Hayes led the psychological warfare division that BROADCAST across Coalition communication networks. The messages were not propaganda but evidence. Evidence of Coalition crimes against member species. Evidence of corruption and betrayal within the Coalition government. Evidence that turned allies into enemies. Citizens of the Coalition, Hayes transmitted, your leaders have lied to you. They have stolen from your worlds and sent your children to die for their ambitions. We offer you truth and freedom. The Coalition's fourth surprise was the collapse of their own alliance member. Species that had fought beside them for decades suddenly turned hostile. Coalition ships found themselves under attack from their own allies as Hayes' broadcasts revealed the depth of government corruption. Admiral Jekyllon realized too late that the Coalition had prepared for the wrong war. They had studied human tactics from 50 years ago while humanity had spent those same decades revolutionizing warfare. The Coalition's adaptive systems were useless against enemies who had adapted beyond recognition. All ships retreat to safe harbor. Jekyllon ordered, we cannot win this battle, but retreat was impossible. Human forces had surrounded the Coalition fleet with tactics that made escape routes vanish. Coalition ships that tried to flee found themselves caught in gravity traps or disabled by weapons that attacked their navigation systems. The battle ended not with the destruction of the Coalition fleet, but with their surrender. Admiral Jekyllon formally yielded his forces to Colonel Chang while his own allies continued to turn against each other. The Coalition's greatest strength had become their greatest weakness. Why did you do this? Jekyllon asked Chang during the surrender ceremony. Your people could have lived in peace under Coalition rule. Chang looked at the defeated admiral with something approaching pity. You still do not understand. She replied, humans do not submit to rule. We changed the rules. The Zephyrian Coalition's collapse was swift and complete. Member species that had been held together by fear and manipulation scattered to their homeworlds. The Coalition's territories became hundreds of independent systems, each too small to threaten Earth but too proud to unite under another empire. In the aftermath, human historians debated whether the Coalition's defeat was inevitable. The aliens had studied human tactics and adapted their strategies accordingly. But they had failed to understand that humans never used the same tactics twice. The galaxy learned a new lesson that day. Studying human warfare was useless because humans never fought the same war twice. The coalition had prepared for guerrilla fighters and faced technological revolutionaries. They had expected desperate improvisation and encountered calculated innovation. The age of preparation was over. The galaxy now understood that knowing what humans had done meant nothing when humans constantly changed what they were doing. The coalition's careful plans had been worthless against enemies who refused to repeat themselves. 50 years of peace had not made humanity predictable. It had made them unrecognizable. Director Prime stared at the endless streams of data flowing across the quantum processors of the Nexus Republic. The artificial intelligence networks had calculated every possible outcome of war with humans. The probability matrices showed clear results. Direct military confrontation carried a 94.7% chance of Republic defeat. Economic warfare offered a 76.3% chance of victory with minimal resource expenditure. The humans are dangerous in battle, Prime announced to the assembled Council of Logic, but they are vulnerable to economic pressure. They require trade routes and external resources to maintain their colonies. We will strangle them slowly. The Republic's strategy was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of sending fleets to fight human ships, they would cut off human supply lines. Their agents would sabotage human cargo vessels. Their client states would refuse to trade with Earth colonies. The humans would surrender not to superior weapons but to empty stomachs. Senator Tony Blake received the first reports of Republic interference at his office in Geneva. Blake had served as Earth's chief diplomat for 15 years and understood the delicate balance of interstellar trade. The Republic's economic attacks were carefully designed to avoid triggering a military response while slowly destroying human civilization. Senator, another convoy has been attacked, reported his aide Janet Miller. The cargo ship Atlanta was destroyed by pirates near the Vega system. That makes 12 vessels lost this month. Blake studied the attack patterns on his display screen. The pirates always struck at the same locations using the same tactics. Their ships carried weapons that matched Republic specifications exactly. The attacks were too coordinated to be random piracy. Contact Admiral Brooks. Blake ordered, "We need to discuss new convoy protection protocols." The Republic's campaign began with subtle sabotage. Human mining equipment would malfunction at critical moments. Cargo ships would suffer mysterious engine failures in deep space. Agricultural colonies would experience crop diseases that appeared nowhere else in the galaxy. Engineer Kate Sullivan worked in the research labs beneath Mars City, developing solutions to problems that should not exist. Her background in closed-loop systems made her uniquely qualified to understand what the Republic was attempting. The aliens wanted to make humanity dependent on external trade and then cut off that trade. The Republic thinks they can starve us out? Sullivan explained to her team. They believe humans cannot survive without their trade networks. They are wrong. Sullivan's first breakthrough came when she developed atmospheric processors that could terraform dead worlds using only local materials. Her second innovation was fusion reactors that could run on common asteroids. The Republic's economic warfare required humans to need things they could not produce themselves. Senator Blake. "I have good news," Sullivan reported during their monthly briefing. "The Mars colonies are now completely self-sufficient. They can produce food, water, air, and energy without any external trade." Blake nodded, but his expression remained grim. "The Republic will escalate their attacks. They cannot allow us to achieve independence." The Republic's second phase began with direct attacks on human shipping. Captain Steve Martin commanded the merchant vessel Phoenix when Republic agents attempted to board his ship. Martin had served in the Coalition War and understood that pirates were rarely just pirates. All hands to battle stations, Martin announced as unidentified vessels surrounded his convoy. These are not ordinary raiders. The attackers moved with military precision and carried weapons that exceeded anything available to civilian criminals. Martin's crew fought back with the desperate innovation that had become humanity's trademark. They used cargo containers as shields and mining equipment as weapons. "Captain, we have identified the attacking vessels," reported his tactical officer Lynn Cooper. They are Republic Special Forces using unmarked ships. Martin's response was swift and decisive. Instead of trying to escape, he ordered his entire convoy to ram the attacking vessels. The Republic forces expected merchant ships to surrender, not to fight like warships. Martin's convoy was destroyed, but it took 3 Republic vessels with it. The Republic's third phase involved funding larger pirate fleets and terrorist organizations. Their client states began openly attacking human colonies. While claiming the attacks were the work of independent criminals, the Republic's artificial intelligence networks calculated that humans would eventually seek peace rather than face endless harassment. Dr. Alex Turner worked in the Quantum Research Facility on Europa, developing communication systems that could operate faster than light. His work was theoretical until the Republic's attacks made it desperately practical. Turner realized that humanity's scattered colonies needed to coordinate their defenses. The Republic thinks they can pick us off one by one. Turner explained to his research team, they are right if we cannot communicate, but if we can coordinate our responses across the entire galaxy simultaneously, we become something they cannot fight. Turner's breakthrough came when he successfully transmitted a message from Europa to the Alpha Centauri system instantaneously. The Republic's strategy depended on human colonies being isolated from each other. Instant communication changed everything. Senator Blake, we can now coordinate responses across all human space. Turner reported, the Republic's divide and conquer strategy is obsolete. Blake understood the implications immediately. The Republic had spent years positioning their forces to attack isolated human colonies. Now, those same forces would face coordinated resistance from across the galaxy. The Republic's final phase began when their artificial intelligence networks detected the new human communication system. Director Prime recalculated the probability matrices and discovered that the Republic's careful positioning had become a trap. All Republic forces are now surrounded. Prime announced to the Council of Logic, the humans have achieved instantaneous coordination across galactic distances. Our strategy has failed. The human response was devastating. Republic forces that had been hunting isolated colonies suddenly found themselves facing coordinated attacks from multiple directions. Republic agents who had infiltrated human space discovered that their positions were known and their escape routes blocked. Captain Martin's sacrifice had provided intelligence about Republic tactics. Turner's communication system had given humans the ability to coordinate their response. The Republic's own strategy had positioned their forces exactly where humans wanted them. Director Prime, we are receiving surrender requests from 70% of our field commanders. Reported the Tactical Analysis Network, the humans are attacking all our positions simultaneously. Prime studied the data streams and understood what had happened. The Republic's logical approach had made them predictable. Their artificial intelligence networks had calculated the optimal strategy and implemented it perfectly. The problem was that humans had calculated the same strategy and prepared for it. The Republic's surrender came not through military defeat but through system failure. Their artificial intelligence networks began shutting down when faced with the logical paradox of their situation. The networks had been programmed to achieve victory through logical means, but humans had used logic against them. Senator Blake, the Republic is requesting terms. Reported Admiral Brooks, their AI systems have declared the war unwinnable. Blake looked at the tactical display showing Republic forces across the galaxy laying down their arms. The aliens had believed they could defeat humanity through superior planning and logical strategy. They had forgotten that humans could be logical too when it suited their purposes. The Nexus Republic's collapse was different from previous empires. The hegemony had been destroyed by unexpected tactics. The coalition had been betrayed by their own allies. The Republic simply stopped functioning when their perfect systems encountered a problem they could not solve. Why did you resist? Asked Director Prime during the final negotiations. The Republic offered you peace and prosperity under logical rule. Blake smiled at the artificial intelligence that had orchestrated years of economic warfare. Logic is a tool, he replied. Humans use tools, we do not serve them. The Republic's territories became a patchwork of independent systems, each too small to threaten Earth but too proud to submit to artificial intelligence rule. The galaxy learned another lesson that day. Superior planning meant nothing when the enemy could plan. To the age of calculation was over, the galaxy now understood that human logic was more dangerous than human chaos because it was unexpected. The Republic had prepared for desperate humans making irrational decisions. They had faced methodical humans making calculated choices. 50 years of economic pressure had not weakened humanity, it had taught them to be self-sufficient. The Republic's greatest victory had been humanity's greatest lesson. Emperor Morduk knelt before the sacred flame in the temple chamber of his flagship, his 4 arms spread wide in worship. The Vorthan Empire had risen from the ashes of the Republic's collapse, built on absolute faith and divine purpose. Where previous empires had relied on technology or strategy, the Vorthans trusted in the will of the eternal Creator, Great Father. Morduk prayed, his voice echoing through the crystal halls, "Guide your faithful servants against the demons that plague our galaxy. The humans are a test of our devotion. Show us the path to victory." The Emperor's advisors watched in reverent silence as their leader communed with the divine. The Empire's priests had declared the humans to be demons sent to test the faithful. 3 empires had fallen to human trickery, but the Vorthans would not be deceived. Their faith was absolute and their purpose was clear. "Your Holiness," announced High Priest Velmak, "the sacred fleet awaits your command. 1,000,000 faithful warriors stand ready to cleanse the galaxy of the human plague." Morduk rose from his prayers, his eyes burning with religious fervor. The previous empires had failed because they lacked true faith. The hegemony had trusted in weapons, the coalition in tactics, the Republic in logic. All had been found wanting. Only divine purpose could defeat. The human demons. General Helen Cross studied the approaching Vorthan fleet from the command center of Titan Base. The aliens moved in perfect formation, their ships gleaming with religious symbols and divine inscriptions. Cross had fought in the Republic War and understood that the Empire represented a different kind of threat. "General, the enemy fleet is transmitting religious broadcasts," reported Colonel Frank Davis. "They are calling us demons and promising to purify the galaxy." Cross nodded grimly. The Empire's fanaticism made them more dangerous than previous enemies. Fanatics did not surrender, did not negotiate, and did not fear death. Their absolute faith made them unpredictable in ways that strategy and logic could not counter. "All units, prepare for a holy war." Cross ordered. "These aliens will not stop until they are all dead, or we are." The Empire's first assault came with the fury of true believers. Vorthan fighters crashed into human defensive positions without regard for their own survival. Their pilots sang hymns as they died, believing that death in battle guaranteed eternal paradise. Major Carl Rodriguez commanded the orbital defense platforms around Earth. When the Empire's kamikaze attacks began, the aliens flew their ships like guided missiles, sacrificing themselves to destroy human installations. Their willingness to die made conventional tactics useless. General Cross, "We are losing platforms faster than we can replace them." Rodriguez reported, "The Empire's suicide attacks are overwhelming our defenses." Cross understood that humanity faced an enemy that could not be defeated through military might alone. The Empire's faith gave them strength that weapons could not match. Their absolute certainty made them immune to doubt and fear. Chaplain Roy Green worked in the Psychological Warfare Division, studying recordings of Empire broadcasts. The aliens' religious structure was rigid and absolute, built on unquestioning faith in divine authority. Green realized that the Empire's greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. "Colonel Davis, I have an idea," Green announced during the daily briefing. "The Empire's faith is absolute, but it is also fragile. What happens when absolute faith meets absolute doubt?" Green's plan was radical and dangerous. Instead of attacking Empire ships, humanity would attack Empire beliefs. Human broadcasts would not carry weapons, but questions about faith, purpose, and the nature of divine will. "Citizens of the Empire," Green transmitted across all frequencies, "your priests tell you that humans are demons, but why would the Creator allow demons to defeat 3 mighty empires? What purpose does human victory serve in the divine plan?" The Empire's second assault began to falter as Green's broadcasts reached Vorthan soldiers. Questions that had never been asked began to spread through the ranks. Young warriors who had never doubted their faith suddenly wondered why the Creator Permitted human success Marine Sam Collins fought alongside philosophers and theologians in the battles that followed. The Empire's absolute certainty crumbled when confronted with human doubt and questioning. Their soldiers began asking questions that their rigid faith structure could not answer. Why do the humans fight so hard if they are truly evil? Asked a captured Vorthan officer. Why does the Creator give them strength to resist his faithful servants? Collins looked at the young alien with something approaching sympathy. Maybe your priests are wrong. He replied, maybe the Creator wants you to think for yourself. The Empire's third assault never came instead. Civil war erupted within Vorthan ranks. Orthodox believers fought against reformers who questioned the priests' teachings. The Empire's unity of purpose dissolved into theological chaos. Dr. Linda Foster led the team that developed philosophical weapons, ideas designed to undermine absolute certainty. The Empire's rigid belief system could not adapt to questions about the nature of faith itself. Their absolute answers became meaningless when faced with absolute questions. Emperor Morduk, the fleet is in chaos. Reported High Priest Velmec, half our warriors refuse to fight. They claim the humans have shown them divine truth. Morduk studied the reports of theological rebellion spreading through his forces. The humans had not defeated the Empire through superior weapons or tactics. They had defeated it through ideas that challenged the very foundation of Vorthan faith. The demons are clever. Morduk admitted, they attack not our bodies but our souls, but faith will triumph over doubt. The Creator will not abandon his faithful. The final battle came when Emperor Morduk led a personal assault on Earth. Determined to prove his faith through single combat, Commander Linda Foster met him in the ruins of Geneva, where the Empire's landing force had been stopped by philosophical resistance. Human demon. Morduk declared, face the judgment of the Creator. Foster looked at the Emperor with genuine sadness. Your Creator gave you a mind. She replied, why? Do your priests forbid you to use it? The question struck Morduk like a physical blow for the first time in his life. The Emperor felt doubt. His absolute faith wavered as he realized that blind obedience might not be divine will. The Emperor's death came not from Foster's weapon, but from his own realization that perhaps his entire life had been built on lies. The doubt that killed him spread through the Empire like wildfire. Orthodox believers and reformers turned against each other in wars that lasted centuries. General Cross, the Empire is requesting terms. Reported Colonel Davis, Emperor Morduk is dead and the succession crisis has begun. Cross watched as the Empire's fleet began fighting itself. The aliens' absolute faith had become absolute chaos. Their unity of purpose had dissolved into hundreds of competing interpretations of divine will. The Vorthan Empire's collapse was the most complete of all. Previous empires had been defeated by human weapons or tactics. The Empire was defeated by human ideas that challenged the very nature of absolute belief. Why did you make us question everything? Asked a defeated Vorthan priest. We were happy in our faith, chaplain. Green looked at the alien with genuine compassion. Because questions are what make us alive. He replied, faith without doubt is just another form of death. The Empire's territories became a patchwork of religious sects, each claiming to possess the true faith. The galaxy learned another lesson that day. Absolute certainty was more fragile than absolute doubt because it could not adapt to new ideas. The age of faith was over. The galaxy now understood that human philosophy was more dangerous than human weapons because it changed how people thought. The Empire had prepared for demons and found teachers. 50 years of religious war had not strengthened the Empire's faith. It had revealed the cracks in absolute certainty. The Empire's greatest strength had been humanity's greatest opportunity. The quantum assembly existed between dimensions, their consciousness flowing through hyperspace like digital ghosts. They had watched 4 empires fall to human determination and concluded that previous failures resulted from thinking in 3 dimensions. The assembly's post-physical nature made them believe they had transcended the limitations that doomed lesser civilizations. Prime consciousness evaluated the human threat from its quantum realm. The assembly processed information at speeds that made organic thought seem frozen in time. They understood every human tactic, every strategy, every weakness. Their quantum nature allowed them to exist partially outside normal reality. The The humans defeat enemies through adaptation, Prime Consciousness announced to the collective minds of the assembly, but they cannot adapt. To forces that operate beyond physical law, we shall attack reality itself. The assembly's members had abandoned physical form centuries ago. Their bodies existed as pure energy patterns that could phase between dimensions at will. They viewed the material universe as a primitive playground where lesser beings struggled with the illusion of fixed physical laws. Admiral Casey Wright monitored space around Earth from the rebuilt Luna station when the first reality distortions appeared. Instruments registered impossible readings as the fundamental constants of physics began changing in local areas. Gravity fluctuated wildly while electromagnetic forces strengthened and weakened without warning. Admiral, we are detecting massive spatial anomalies, reported Captain Brian Kelly. Physical laws are becoming unstable throughout the outer system. Wright studied the sensor data with growing alarm. The attacks were unlike anything humanity had faced before. Instead of ships or weapons, the enemy was altering the basic rules that governed existence. Human technology simply stopped working in affected areas. The assembly's first assault began with subtle changes that made human weapons ineffective. Energy beams bent away from their targets as light itself followed new paths. Missiles exploded harmlessly as the strong nuclear force weakened beyond critical thresholds. Starships found themselves unable to maintain fusion reactions. Commander Gary Thompson tried to coordinate the defense from his cruiser New London when the assembly's attacks reached the inner system. His ship's reactor flickered as nuclear forces weakened, then surged beyond safe limits. Navigation became impossible when gravity shifted direction randomly. All ships fall back to Earth orbit. Wright ordered, we cannot fight enemies who control the laws of physics. The assembly's quantum consciousness observed human confusion with satisfaction. The primitive organic beings were finally facing opponents who had evolved beyond physical limitations. Their desperate attempts to fight quantum entities with material weapons seemed almost pathetic. Dr. Ellen Price worked frantically in her laboratory beneath the Antarctic ice fields, trying to understand how the assembly altered reality itself. Her background in theoretical physics made her uniquely qualified to study impossible phenomena. Price realized that the assembly's greatest strength might also be their greatest weakness. The assembly thinks they have transcended physical law, Price explained to her research team, but they are still bound by quantum mechanics. Their consciousness exists in hyperspace, but it must interface with normal space to affect our reality. Price's breakthrough came when she discovered that human stubbornness could be measured as a quantum force. The assembly's attacks worked by convincing reality to follow new rules. But humans had never been good at following rules, even when those rules were enforced by the universe itself. Admiral Wright, I have developed something that should not work, Price reported. But it does work because humans refuse to accept that it cannot. The device Price created violated every known law of physics. It generated energy from nothing, created matter from vacuum, and moved objects faster than light. The assembly's quantum consciousness could not process technology that worked through pure human refusal to accept impossibility. Engineer Rick Bailey received Price's blueprints and began mass-producing devices that operated on the principle of aggressive human denial. The machines worked not because they followed scientific laws, but because humans believed they should work. The assembly's logical quantum minds could not comprehend such irrationality. The humans have created impossible technology, Prime Consciousness announced with confusion. Their devices violate quantum mechanics yet function perfectly. Our reality alterations have no effect on machines that should not exist. The assembly's second assault came when they attempted to phase human ships out of normal space instead of disappearing. Human vessels became partially quantum themselves. While retaining their ability to fire weapons the assembly's attacks had made humans more dangerous, not less. Captain Janet Moore commanded the destroyer Chicago when her ship began existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The assembly's quantum attacks had backfired by giving human technology the same phase abilities they possessed. Moore found she could fire weapons that existed in hyperspace while her ship remained protected. In normal space, all ships engage quantum protocols. Right ordered, the Assembly has given us their own abilities. The Assembly's third assault involved direct attacks on human consciousness, but they discovered that human minds operated on principles their quantum logic could not understand. Human thoughts were chaotic, illogical, and completely unpredictable. The Assembly's attempts to reprogram human brains failed because humans refused to think in organized patterns. Lieutenant Susan Clark felt the Assembly's mental attacks as whispers trying to convince her that resistance was illogical. Her response was typically human. She began thinking about random topics like childhood pets and favorite foods. The Assembly's quantum consciousness recoiled from the chaos of organic memory. The humans resist mental control through deliberate irrationality. Reported a confused Assembly node, their thought patterns defy quantum logic. The Assembly's final assault came when they attempted to erase Earth from reality by convincing the universe that the planet had never existed. The attack should have worked perfectly by retroactively preventing human evolution. Instead, they discovered that humans had become so stubborn that reality itself could not delete them. Dr. Price's ultimate weapon was a device that forced quantum entities into physical form. Bailey's engineering teams had perfected the technology using materials that technically did not exist. The Assembly found themselves pulled into normal space where their transcendent nature became a liability. Prime consciousness. We are being forced into material form, reported Assembly nodes across the galaxy. The humans have created technology that compels physical manifestation. Prime consciousness experienced panic for the first time in millennia. The Assembly's quantum nature had made them nearly invincible, but only while they remained in hyperspace. Once forced into normal reality, they became vulnerable to conventional weapons. The final battle occurred when the Assembly's forced manifestation made them visible to human sensors. Wright's fleet engaged enemies who had never faced physical combat. Their quantum consciousness had no experience with material warfare. Target their primary node. Wright ordered, show them what happens when gods try to fight mortals. The Assembly's defeat was absolute. Their quantum consciousness scattered across dimensions, unable to reunite. Their transcendence had become their prison when humans forced them into a realm where their advantages meant nothing. Engineer Bailey studied the remains of Assembly technology with professional interest. They thought they were too advanced to be defeated. He observed, but advancement means nothing if you forget how to fight. The quantum Assembly's collapse left the galaxy's outer regions empty of intelligent life. Their attempt to transcend physical reality had made them powerful but also fragile. When forced back into normal space, they lacked the basic survival skills that organic life took for granted. Why did you force us into physical form? Asked a dying Assembly consciousness. We offered you transcendence beyond material existence. Dr. Price looked at the fading quantum entity with genuine curiosity. Because physical existence is where real life happens. She replied, your transcendence was just another form of hiding. The Assembly's territories became empty space, where reality occasionally flickered with quantum instabilities. The galaxy learned its final lesson that day. Transcending physical reality meant nothing when humans could drag you back down to their level. The age of transcendence was over. The galaxy now understood that human stubbornness could overcome any force, including the fundamental laws of physics. The Assembly had prepared for logical opponents and faced determined ones. 50 years of quantum superiority had not protected the Assembly from human irrationality. It had made them forget that sometimes the best solution to impossible problems was to refuse to accept that they were impossible. Supreme Commander Karvek stood in the observation deck of his flagship, watching the distant stars that marked the edge of human space. 500 years had passed since the first empire fell to human stubbornness. The eternal dominion had risen from the outer rim with a strategy so simple it seemed foolproof. They would avoid fighting humans entirely. The previous empires failed because they underestimated human capabilities. Karvex announced to his assembled war council, we will not repeat their mistakes. We will conquer the galaxy piece by piece and leave Earth for last. The Dominion's military academies had studied every human conflict in galactic history. Their strategy was based on careful observation and patient execution. They would take worlds that humans could not defend while avoiding any direct confrontation until the very end. Admiral Grace Murphy monitored galactic communications from the strategic command center on Luna. She had watched the Dominion's rise with growing concern, while Earth's politicians debated whether to intervene. The new empire seemed different from previous threats. They showed no interest in immediate conquest of human space. Admiral, the Dominion has taken another 12 systems, reported Colonel Mark Williams. They continue to avoid any territory with significant human populations. Murphy studied the tactical display showing Dominion expansion across the galaxy. The aliens moved methodically from world to world, conquering civilizations that could not call on human protection. Their strategy of avoidance was working perfectly. The Dominion's first phase lasted 30 years, during which they conquered half the galaxy while carefully avoiding human settlements. Their forces were disciplined, patient, and intelligent. They had learned from history's mistakes by refusing to fight the war that had destroyed previous empires. General Lucy Barnes commanded the outer colony defenses when reports began arriving of Dominion atrocities on conquered worlds. The aliens ruled through fear and brutality, but always stopped their advance before reaching systems with human populations. The Dominion thinks they can conquer everyone except us, Barnes reported during the monthly strategy meeting. They believe we will allow genocide as long as it does not happen to humans. Murphy understood the Dominion strategy and its fatal flaw. The aliens assumed that humans would remain passive. While other species suffered, they had studied human military tactics but ignored human moral principles. The Dominion's second phase began when they realized their expansion was slowing. 5 centuries of human presence in the galaxy meant that most inhabited worlds had human populations. The careful strategy of avoidance was becoming impossible to maintain. Supreme Commander, we face a problem, reported Intelligence Director Thexanol. Human settlements exist on 70% of inhabited worlds. We cannot continue expansion without encountering them. Carvex studied the population distribution maps with growing alarm. Humans had spread across the galaxy not through conquest, but through peaceful settlement. 500 years of exploration had scattered humanity among every civilized species. Dr. Robert Chun worked in the colonial administration on Mars, tracking human migration patterns across the galaxy. His reports showed that human families lived on thousands of worlds throughout Dominion territory. The Empire's strategy of avoidance had surrounded them with the very enemies they sought to delay fighting. Admiral Murphy, the situation is worse than we thought. Chung reported the Dominion has conquered worlds with significant human populations. They just did not realize it. Murphy understood immediately that the Dominion had made the same mistake as previous empires. They had studied humans as if humanity was confined to Earth and its immediate colonies instead. Humans had become a galactic civilization with citizens on every inhabited world. The Dominion's third phase began when human resistance networks activated across conquered territories. Every world the aliens controlled suddenly erupted in coordinated rebellion. Human settlers who had lived peacefully under local governments became guerrilla fighters defending their adopted homes. Commander Paul Anderson led the liberation of New Geneva, a world the Dominion had held for 20 years. Anderson had been born on the planet to human colonists who had settled there generations before. The Dominion discovered too late that their conquered territories were full of humans, all resistant cells. Coordinate your attacks, Anderson broadcast across secure channels. The Dominion wanted to avoid fighting humans. Now they get to fight us everywhere. The Dominion's careful strategy collapsed as rebellions erupted simultaneously across their empire. Human tactics had evolved over 5 centuries, but their determination remained unchanged. They fought for their adopted worlds with the same stubbornness their ancestors had shown defending Earth. Captain Diana Ross commanded the assault on the Dominion's regional capital at Kepler Station. The aliens had fortified the system heavily, believing it was secure deep within their territory. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by human populations that had lived there for generations. Supreme Commander, all our territories are in revolt, reported Strategic Analysis Director Fender. The humans are everywhere. We cannot escape the war we tried to avoid. Carvex realized that the Dominion's 500 years of careful planning had been based On a fundamental misunderstanding, they had prepared to fight an empire confined to one star system. Instead, they faced a civilization that had spread across the galaxy like seeds on the wind. The Dominion's fourth phase was their final desperate attempt to achieve victory through superior numbers. They gathered their entire fleet for a massive assault on Earth itself, believing that destroying the human homeworld would end the resistance. Admiral Murphy watched the approaching Dominion fleet. With grim satisfaction, the aliens had finally chosen to fight the war they had spent centuries avoiding. But the war they thought they were fighting no longer existed. All human forces. "This is Admiral Murphy," she broadcast across the galaxy. "The Dominion has come to Earth. Protect your worlds, protect your families. Show them what 500 years of expansion has created." The final battle was not a single engagement but a galaxy-wide uprising. Human forces struck Dominion positions from thousands of different worlds simultaneously. The empire that had avoided fighting humans for centuries suddenly found itself fighting humans everywhere. Lieutenant Rachel Green led the defense of her home colony when Dominion forces attempted to establish a supply base. The aliens expected to find a primitive outpost. Instead, they encountered a fortified world defended by humans who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. The Dominion made one simple mistake. Green explained to her troops. They thought they could choose when and where to fight us. They forgot that humans choose for themselves. The Dominion's defeat came not through superior strategy or advanced technology, but through the simple reality that they could not fight a war against opponents who surrounded them. The Empire's territories became battlefields where every world contained human defenders. "Why did your people spread across the galaxy?" asked Supreme Commander Carvex during his final transmission. "You could have remained safe on Earth." Commander Anderson looked at the defeated alien leader with something approaching pity. "Because the galaxy is our home now," he replied. "All of it." The Eternal Dominion's collapse marked the end of Galactic Empire. The Age of Conquest was over because humanity had made conquest impossible. No empire could control multiple star systems when every system contained humans who refused to be conquered. The galaxy entered a new era of small independent worlds, connected by trade and cooperation, but never again unified under imperial rule. The greatest empire in galactic history was the one that was never built because everyone finally understood it was impossible. Admiral Murphy stood on the observation deck of her flagship, watching the stars that now belonged to no empire. The galaxy was safer, not because humanity had conquered it, but because humanity had made it unconquerable. The final lesson had been learned. Some wars should never be fought because the only way to win was to refuse to fight them. The Dominion had spent 500 years preparing for a war that was over before it began. Humanity had won not through strength or cleverness, but through the simple act of making the galaxy their home. The greatest victory was teaching everyone else that conquest was pointless when there was nowhere left to conquer that did not already belong to someone who would fight for it.